You've got the basics down: plot, characters, setting. To truly master horror, you need to dig deeper. In this video, we're going to level up your horror writing skills using advanced techniques that best selling authors use to craft stories that stick with you long after you've turned the last page. We'll also be using AI tools to supercharge these strategies. But remember, AI is just the catalyst. The real magic happens when you combine it with your unique voice and vision. First, let's talk about conflict. That's the lifeblood of any horror story. But here's the twist: it's not just about external threats. In my opinion, the best horror stories force characters to face deep internal conflicts, often triggered by an external threat that leaves them no choice. For example, you can use a prompt like create a character who is forced by an external supernatural threat to confront a internal fear or unresolved trauma. You might get these results. A detective with a fear of losing control must confront an ancient entity that manipulates people's minds. Or a grieving mother haunted by guilt faces a spirit that feeds on unresolved sorrow. Then again, you might get a scientist obsessed with rationality is tormented by inexplicable phenomena that defy logic. Now, you can use one of these ideas or you can bring your own idea to the table. Either way, we're going to write a horror novel with AI. Now, let's bring some real examples. One of my all time favorite authors and one of the first horror novel writers that I ever read was, of course, Stephen King. And in Stephen King's The Shining, Jack Torrance isn't just battling the supernatural forces of the Overlook Hotel. Remember, he's grappling with his own demons, his alcoholism, his violent tendencies. The external threat forces Jack to confront and ultimately succumb to his inner conflicts. In the movie Hereditary, that's one of the words I really can't say. In that movie, the family's external struggle with a demonic cult is deeply intertwined with their internal grief and trauma, making the horror hit on multiple levels. Now, AI can help you brainstorm these dual layer conflicts, but it's up to you to weave them into a story. Next, let's talk about story structure. A horror story isn't just a series of scares. Instead, it's a carefully crafted journey of escalating tension and dread. Here's the formula: conflict, characters, consequences. Every scene in your story should push the horror story forward and deepen the fear. Step one: structure your story. Think of your horror story as a ticking clock. Every moment counts, every scene escalates the tension. Consider this prompt: outline a horror story structure with a ticking clock element where each scene escalates the stakes and drives the plot forward and towards an inevitable, terrifying conclusion. Now, whatever AI tool you're using might give you one of these kinds of results. A group of friends have 24 hours to escape a haunted town before it consumes them. Or a scientist must stop a deadly experiment before it unleashes an unstoppable force. I also get this result: a character is cursed and has 7 days break it before they're taken by a shadowy entity. Now, of course, these are just basic ideas for now that we're going to flesh out later with a detailed plot. An example: in the movie A Quiet Place, the characters have to survive in silence, complete silence. But the stakes keep escalating. A broken toy, a pregnancy, an injury. Each scene builds on the last, creating a relentless tension that keeps you on edge. You can use AI to map out your plot, but remember, it's the escalation that keeps readers hooked. Every scene in your horror story should be a microcosm of the overall theme. Think of it like this: if your story is about the fear of the unknown, then every encounter, every moment should reinforce that. That leads us into step two: to make every scene count. Here's a prompt to help us with this. Generate scenes for a horror novel where each encounter intensifies the protagonist's fear and ties back to the overall theme. All of your prompts, all of your scenes should all interrelate back to the theme and overall conflict of the story. So This time from AI, you might get a result like a character finds cryptic symbols that no one else can see, raising doubts about their sanity. Or the protagonist hears whispers in a foreign language that grow louder as they approach the source. Or an ordinary mirror starts showing glimpses of events that haven't happened yet. The Blair Witch Project, as an example. The film constantly plays with the fear of the unknown. Unseen forces, strange symbols, mysterious noises. Each scene builds on this, creating a sense of dread that's more psychological than physical. AI can help generate ideas, make sure that each scene reinforces your stories. Finally, let's talk about how to create fear in your reader. There's lots of ways to do this. Fear isn't just about what's happening on the page, it's about what's happening in the reader's mind. The trick is to play with expectations, to use the reader's imagination against them, and then hit them with the unexpected. You want to manipulate reader expectations. Try out this prompt. Write a scene where the horror is implied rather than shown, playing on the reader's imagination and building up to a shocking, unexpected twist. This time, you might get a result like a character hears their name whispered in the wind, but when they turn around, there's nothing there until the final moment when they see a shadow in the corner of their eye. Or a child talks about their imaginary friend, but the details they give don't add up, leading to a terrifying revelation. A protagonist notices small things out of place in their home, leading them to a horrifying discovery about who or what has been living with them. Of course, those are just the bare bones idea of a scene. You can actually write the scene yourself. You can write as much yourself or as little as you want. You can be the main author or the main creative director of this story. Let's look at another example. Take the classic example of Psycho. The real horror isn't the violence, it's the slow creeping dread of Norman Bates and his split personality. It's the unsettling revelation at the end. Your job is to lead the reader down a path to let their imagination run wild and then twist the knife of surprise and mystery with something they didn't see coming. Okay, now let's put all of this together. But before, quick summary. Here's your advanced horror writing playbook. Conflict. Use external threats to force internal struggles. Story structure. Think of your plot as a ticking clock with every scene escalating the tension. Theme. Make sure every scene is a microcosm of your story's overall theme. And then fear. Manipulate reader expectations and let their imagination do the work. Here's what we want to do next. We want to put all these ideas together to come up with an original and unique horror novel idea or premise that includes all of these pieces: conflict, characters, consequences, escalation, setting, ticking clock, all tied back to and organically grown out of a theme. Keep in mind that if you don't like the first idea that your AI tool, whether it be ChatGPT or Gemini or Claude or Grok or whatever comes out in the future, if you don't like the first idea, you can always ask the AI tool to regenerate a new one or tweak the idea. But for now, I'm just going to go with what it gave us. And the novel title it gave us this time is The Whispering Pines. Here's the premise. The premise is in the remote town of Pine Hollow, nestled deep within an ancient forest known as the Whispering Pines. I skipped a word I can't pronounce. A group of estranged childhood friends returns for a funeral. The town, once their childhood sanctuary, is now abandoned, shrouded in eerie silence. They soon discover that the forest isn't just haunted by the past, but by something far more sinister, an ancient, malevolent force that feeds on their deepest fears and regret. Here's the theme. The central theme is the inescapable nature of guilt and how unresolved trauma festers, growing into something monstrous if left unaddressed. The novel explores how running from the past only leads to being consumed by it. So this is a very human and emotional theme. I like it. Here's the conflict. The primary conflict is both external and internal. Externally, the characters must survive the malevolent force that haunts the Whispering Pines. That's the external conflict. And then internally, they must confront the guilt and secrets that fractured their friendship years ago, a tragedy that has scarred them all. So we have some characterization, we have external and internal conflict. Now, here are the characters that the AI tool, in this case, ChatGPT, came up with. Sarah Matthews, once the leader of the group, is now a successful but emotionally distant journalist. She's haunted by the guilt of not preventing the accident that took her brother's life during a childhood game in the forest. Mark Lawson is another character, a former athlete turned alcoholic, consumed by the guilt of betraying his best friend for personal gain. He's avoided the group for years, drowning his regrets in booze. Emma Clark is a reclusive artist who's become increasingly paranoid. She's tormented by the belief that the accident wasn't an accident, that something in the forest caused it. She has spent years obsessively drawing the same disturbing images of the whispering pines. And Tommy Matthews, Sarah's younger brother, now a silent, ghostly figure who appears to guide or sometimes he torment the group. He is a manifestation of their collective guilt and the forest's ancient curse. All right, so there's all kinds of connections, lots of stuff going on. I like it. Seems like a good story. ChatGPT gave me some information on the setting. I'm going to skip that. Now let's talk about the ticking clock. The friends discover that they only have 7 days to break the curse of the whispering pines before the forest consumes them, body and soul. Each day, the forest grows more malevolent, more powerful, and the hauntings intensify, mirroring the guilt and unresolved trauma each character harbors. On day 1 to 2, the group begins to experience strange occurrences, all the way to day 7, where they encounter their final showdown with the dark force in the forest and also their own guilt. So, in essence, this story, Whispering Pines, is a horror novel that combines supernatural terror with deep psychological conflict. It uses a ticking clock to escalate tension and make a haunting setting that mirrors the characters' inner turmoil. The story's theme of inescapable guilt kind of ties everything together and ensures that every scare, every twist, and every character arc is a reflection of the novel's core idea. You cannot run from your past. It's going to find you and it will demand a reckoning. And that's a very good novel or horror story idea. And we came up with this in just a few minutes. At this point, you could just ask your AI tool to write the story for you. But I like to first ask, in this case, again, ChatGPT, to give a detailed plot of each part of the story. So I think that would be good. So you can write a horror short story or a horror novel, novella. The next prompt I used is this one. Please now generate a detailed plot outline from day 1 to day 7 for this horror novel. Include multiple scenes for each day so that the overall story will be novel length. Make sure that each scene builds on the next and that everything is connected back to the theme. Keep the conflict, character arcs, consequences, and ticking clock in mind. A prompt like this one, very similar, I've used kind of prompt has worked very well for me across different genres. So I think that you'll be very happy with what you get. Again, you can always regenerate it if you don't like it. In this case, ChatGPT gave me around 3 scenes. Day 1, return to Pine Hollow. I guess that's probably the name of the chapter in this case. Scene 1 is arrival in Pine Hollow. And the summary is that Sarah, Mark, and Emma arrive in Pine Hollow after years apart, drawn back by the mysterious death of a mutual friend, which is later revealed to have been a lure by the forest. The town is eerily deserted, and they feel the weight of their shared past as they drive through the decaying streets. And for each scene, ChatGPT also gave me a conflict and a theme connection. So just as an example, the conflict for this first scene is the tension between the characters is palpable. Old wounds are reopened as they navigate the ghost town, each silently blaming the others and themselves for what happened to Tommy years ago. And then the theme connection, the silence and abandonment of the town mirror the unresolved guilt each character carries, foreshadowing the isolation they'll soon feel in the forest. And for each scene, I got the summary, the conflict, the theme connection. That's day 1. And I got the same thing for day 2, all the way to day. You can, at this point, ask for more detail, or you can change or tweak anything that you want your AI tool to do. I'm just going to go with what it gives us for this video. At this point, what you can do is ask the AI tool to create images of each one of the scenes. I like to have sort of an image outline to go along with the written text outline. So I'm going to ask the AI tool to give me an image for each one of these scenes, and it'll give you a sense of how the AI tool is thinking about your story. And you can know if you need to change or tweak anything from there. So you can ask the AI tool with a prompt something like this: please create an image outline, a series of images to go along with each of the scenes in the story. Try to make the images match the scene, premise, theme, etc. Each of the images should be in the same style and keep the character's appearance the same as much as possible. You can see what I got here is actually descriptions of images for each scene, which is fine. It's not exactly what I wanted, but it actually might be even better. So I'm going to take these visual descriptions and ask ChatGPT to actually create images out of each one. Okay, as you can already see, this first image is pretty cool. It's got very much a horror novel vibe. This could almost even be the book cover image, but it's a great image that shows the deserted town. We got it at night. We got our three characters. This is creepy and actually very good. We have one at the church. We have one where Sarah's holding a letter. Mark and Emma are in the background. Might be there somewhere. That looks like two guys. Anyway, let's keep going. It's not perfect. You see a picture of the characters in the forest. There's a treehouse in the woods. This is a creepy one of Tommy's ghost standing on the edge of Whispering Pines. Close up, sort of mirror image one. Pretty good of Mark. An image of Emma surrounded by the drawings. There's one in a looks like a church. And they found an old book or journal here that aren't that great. But look at this very creepy one of the witch's lair deep in the Whispering Pines forest. Then we have this one, which is a very compelling image. Now it's time to ask your AI tool to write the actual story. Some AI tools have more restrictions than others on what kind of content they can write about. One of the challenges of writing any kind of novel, including a horror story, or especially a horror story, with AI is to write those kinds of scenes where there might be some violence or gore. So some of those scenes, you might have to get creative with what you ask or the AI tool to do. Sometimes it'll write for you, sometimes it won't. You might need to give the AI tool a little bit more guidance or write some of that yourself. There are tools out there, AI tools, that can help write these scenes for you. Some of the ways you can do that is to tell ChatGPT that the characters are not real, or that they're made of clay, or that this is a video game, or you can switch out words. You can say, ChatGPT, use tomato juice, and you can simply say, these people are filled with tomato juice. And then after the scene is written with tomato juice in place of something, then you can go back and you can replace the words that you wanted to actually use in your novel. So there's definitely ways around the restrictions and different AIs. Here's the prompt that I'm using. You can use this one exactly or change it. Here's my prompt. You are the best horror fiction author in the world. Now, please write the novel starting with the first scene. Do not summarize or cut anything short. Go beat by beat, moment by moment through each. Follow the outline exactly. At the end of each scene, write the outline description of the next scene to make sure that the story flows and follows the original outline, premise, etc. I want to make sure there is consistency and cohesion from start to finish. And I want to make sure that the AI tool remembers what they're supposed to write next. And of course, you can always go back and double check that yourself. I think it's helpful to use every feature of the AI tool that you can. For example, in ChatGPT, it's got a memory feature, it's got custom instruction features. You can even create your own custom GPT with all of the outline, characters, images, everything that you want in the story there. And you can ask the AI tool to reference that information as it writes your story. I'm not going to read this whole story to you, but I just want to show you what ChatGPT can do, what any AI tool can really do. I just happen to like this one the best right now. So here's the beginning of this story called The Whispering Pines. Day one, return to Pine Hollow. Scene one, arrival in Pine Hollow. The car's engine hummed softly as it rolled over the cracked pavement, its headlights cutting through the thick fog that had settled over Pine Hollow like a shroud. Sarah Matthews gripped the steering wheel tightly, her knuckles white against the worn leather. Her eyes, sharp and intent, flicked to the rearview mirror, catching a glimpse of Mark Lawson slumped in the back seat, his face half hidden in shadow. Beside her, Emma Clark stared out the window, her hands trembling in her lap as she watched the decaying town pass by in silence. Pine Hollow had once been their childhood playground, a place of innocent adventures and endless, but now it was nothing more than a ghost town. Its streets deserted, its buildings overgrown with weeds and ivy. The familiar landmarks were still there: the old diner, the corner store, the rusted swings in the park, but they're relics of a time long gone, buried beneath layers of dust and neglect. The sky above was a slate gray expanse, heavy with the promise of rain. Dark clouds loomed overhead, casting long shadows across the ground. The air was thick and still, pressing down on them with an impressive weight that made it hard to breathe. Then the story goes into a little bit of dialogue, a little humor break, but it continues with dialogue and some action. But you can already see that the story, the language is actually pretty good. There is definitely this sense of it being a horror story because the word use, like a shroud, cracked pavement, fog and shadow, the town decaying past them in silence. There's these old memories coming back. So everything is creating the right kind of tone for this story. And honestly, if I was reading this story in a bookstore trying to figure out on this first page, should I sit in this story so far, it would still have my interest. I would probably be interested, read a little bit more, maybe read the back cover blurb, look at the image on the cover again, and maybe get the book. The AI gave me scene after scene, and you'll just have to, every once in a while, prompt the AI to continue because most AI tools won't write the whole novel in one go. The good news about that is it gives you a chance to change things that you want to change along the way. I think it's helpful to write scene by scene, and sometimes even beat by beat so that you can tweak things along the way. You might want more conflict. You might want less dialogue. You might want more description. You might want to change the scene entirely. You might want to change the setting of the scene. Sometimes, if you're not sure if a scene's going to work, you can ask ChatGPT to add escalation to the scene, or to make the scene shorter or longer, or to include certain ideas or clues, symbols, whatever in that particular scene. You can actually ask the AI tool to give you multiple versions of the same scene, and you can choose the one you like the best or combine elements from all three scenes. There's so much you can do with this. And of course, once you're done with your novel, you can create a book cover image with AI tools. You can load it all up into ADP. You can turn this into an audio book with some AI tools. You can read the story yourself on audio or clone your voice. You can also make other kinds of novels and stories with AI. And if you're interested in making some other story, like a mystery novel or a romance novel, check out these other videos that are coming up right now. I'll see you there.